Welcome to session 3C, Raising Expectations, Improving Website Accessibility for People with Deafblindness. I would like to introduce Dr. Meredith Prain. She has worked in the field of deafblindness for 27 years in a range of roles including speech pathologist, deafblind consultant, researcher, and program manager. She currently works at Able Australia as the National Head of Research and Centre of Excellence, Deafblind, and SensesWA as Project Manager, Deafblind Information Australia. Meredith is a board member of Deafblind Australia and Deafblind International. She is passionate about high-quality interactions and approaches to achieving them. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
It's the third one for the day. I'm so sorry. We'd also like to welcome Melanie Robartson. See, I knew I was going to do that. She has worked as a speech pathologist for over 20 years. The majority of this time has been spent in the disability sector in Western Australia and has included direct client services in early school age and adult intervention programs, consultant training and project work. She joined SensesWA in 2008 and so began her work in deafblindness as senior speech pathologist and deafblind consultant. Her current role is Project Officer, Deafblind Information Australia. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. I wanted to start today with my favourite bar joke to follow on from Mike. A man walks into a bar and says, "Ouch!" And our presentation today is hopefully with you all going off to make accessing websites a little less ouch for people with deafblindness and raise their expectations that when they go online that they will actually be able to access the information. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, you're good following me, you're clicking along? Yep, thank you. We'll give you a bit of background to this session, and then we'll give you an overview of a website accessibility audit that we undertook. We'll give you some of our top tips for making websites accessible, and then we're going to spend quite a bit of time getting you to actually have a go at looking at ways of making websites more accessible and some practical activities that you can take away and back to your own organisations and your own websites. So the Deafblind Information Australia project was funded by our funding body that funds all disability services in Australia, which is a relatively new scheme called the National Disability Insurance Scheme, under their Information Linkages and Capacity Building grant program, and we were under the Information grant. And it's a consortium of SensesWA as the lead agency, but also Able Australia and Deafblind Australia. So Able and Senses are both service organisations, and Deafblind Australia is the peak advocacy body for people with deafblindness in Australia. So we thought it was important to get some collaboration happening across the country on this project. And the aims of the project are multiple. So one is to provide good high quality information about working with people with congenital deafblindness, and particularly those with very early or limited language. And also there's a technology project and looking at evaluating mainstream technology outcomes for people with deafblindness. We also have a national deafblind awareness raising project. It is part of the project, so which has just happened. I'm sure you're all aware that it's just been Deafblind Awareness Week. And also coordination of a reference group. So there's quite a few arms of the project, but one thing that we felt strongly about when we applied for the grant, we always take a nothing about us without us approach, and really wanted to make sure that all of the resources we were developing that end up on our website are as accessible as possible. On your table, you'll see some postcards that have our website on it, so all of our work ends up on that website. That's kind of the central place that everything goes. And I'm pleased to say that of the 5 project staff on the Deafblind Information Australia project, 3 of us have access needs, including myself. I am legally blind, and in undertaking this project, it's really increased my awareness of how often websites are inaccessible, and every time I find myself leaning in trying to read really pale font or curly font, I get a bit more grumpy now, knowing that it's a really easy free fix that we should be more aware of. So we're really hoping that after this session you will go away and act as allies for people with deafblindness within your organisation, but also when you come across websites which are inaccessible, letting the organisation know how they can improve it. So when we're talking about accessibility, who are we considering? So there's a few different groups that makes access complex. Access is very individual, but in terms of the key groups that we're considering, it's people like myself with low vision who access information visually and through screen magnification. Then people who access information on the screen through screen reading technology, and that might be through audio or through Braille. And sign language users also, so the deaf community, and in Australia our sign language is Auslan. And also people with low literacy. So that could be people with developmental disability, cognitive disability, but also people who are deaf, whose English is their second language and who may have had limited access to education. And also people with alternate access needs, so accessing the keyboard and the mouse differently. In Australia, the Australian Bureau of Statistics indicates that 44% of adult Australians between the age of 16 and 65 have a reading level or literacy level at grade 9 or below. So that's something that's very much guided our work also. So I'll hand over to Melanie now to talk you through our website accessibility audit.
Thanks, Meredith. So as part of our project work, we needed to assess our own website, the deafblindinformation.org.au website, and underwent an audit with some digital accessibility audit specialists. And that process, so our website was assessed in terms of how it came across to screen reader users, those who access auditory information from a screen reader, and those who access tactile information from a screen reader, such as Braille. Those who use screen magnification, and was there adequate contrast and formatting, those was the written text at an appropriate literacy level, was there sign language interpretation or translation included, and then we also know that our population, despite incorporating all these things, might also need some face-to-face assistance to access digital content. The accessibility standard that we were assessed against was the Worldwide Web Accessibility Standards. There's 3 levels that they assess against, rating A to rating AAA. Our audit was tested. They tested level A and AA standards, and we selected some AAA standards to be tested, and we discussed our deafblind population or audience with the auditors, and that was their recommendation for testing. And so AAA being the highest level of accessibility and the highest standard of accessibility. And so, as mentioned, they tested our website on screen readers, screen magnifiers, speech recognition software. They tested it on both iOS, so Apple, and Android operating systems, and they tested it on mobile and desktop devices. The process took the initial audit process took 12 months. 2 months to plan what was going to be tested and how much that would cost. 2 months for them to do the assessment and report on it. 7 months for us to make the first round of changes or recommendation, or implement the first round of changes and retest those changes, and then a further month to correct any remaining errors and do a second round of testing. And that was from November 2020 to November 2021. But that's not where it ended. It's an ongoing process. So from December 2021 until present, we took 12 months. We continued our work and reviewed a service directory. So we have a list of services of organisations and providers on our website that may assist people with deafblindness or provide services to them, and that was in a table format that was completely inaccessible. So we reworked and reprogrammed, worked with a programmer to redesign that whole section. So that was a focus for the following 12 months. And ongoing, our project team continue to test and check pages that were not tested in the audit process. So for the audit process, we selected a sample of our web pages that represented kind of a cross-section or covered most kind of formatting and styles in our website. They didn't test every page of the website. I think it was about 10 to 12 pages in all that were tested, but our website is probably over 100 pages. So those other pages we check ourselves for any items that remain. So a little overview of the results. So when tested against the level A, the AA and some of the AAA criteria, we failed 45% of them, and we passed 42% with 13% of the criteria not tested. And that was some of those ones that we made a choice not to test. Having said that, they did say that it was quite. They regarded the website fairly highly, regardless of those fails, because one criteria that you fail on a page means the whole thing fails. So it could mean one little correction and you would get a pass then. So. They also rated the severity of those errors for us, which gave us a way to tackle and a process to tackle the changes. So we started with the critical errors, which meant that somebody accessing the website through one of those technologies could not complete a task on the website, so we started with those. The high-level ratings meant that you could complete a task, but it was very confusing, and there was a lot of extra work involved for the user. Medium being it's confusing and time-consuming. Again, you can do it. Low meaning you can do it, but the process is slightly annoying and could be better. So the summary of the outcomes of the 10 pages that were tested, there were 166 errors identified. 75% of them we were able to fix, but 2/3 of them we needed the help of a software developer or a website programmer. But there was a third that we could do ourselves, and that third is what we're going to focus on in our practical activity workshop, because they're things that with no technical background that we learned to do ourselves and now do every day as just part of our process and part of our work. So that's what we'll share with you. 20% of the errors we addressed by actually removing that function from the website. So there was a donation function that was completely inaccessible, so we just removed the donation function. And 5% we either partially fixed or accepted as issues. And some of the issues were with, say, third-party components that we were using, such as YouTube and YouTube controls, which we didn't have much control of. We had to either use the video or not use the video. So there were some things that we couldn't influence too much. So the next section I'm going to hand over to Meredith, I think. Yep. And these are those 30% of errors that we could fix all by ourselves.
Yes, thank you for your presentation.
My apologies, I forgot to change the slides. Here we go. And these are available through the Event Hub.
So could you be more specific about what type of interventions
Whoops.
and were the interventions
Okay.
similar
Oh,
in this
I was following along, but everyone else was.
Were there different interventions in different countries?
Oh, good concentration, everybody. So I'll start with tips for text, and so these are some of my favourite as a person with low vision. So one thing is text contrast, the contrast of the text against the background. And there's 2 free contrast checkers that you can use to check for optimal contrast. But just something to be aware of, sometimes when text is on an image, the image might be black in that corner, and so people started with white text, but then the picture gets very light, and so the text becomes more inaccessible. So be mindful of putting text on images and making sure that there's high contrast across the whole image. Also font style, so making sure that you use non-decorative fonts and widely available fonts. Arial is my personal favourite, but Verdana is another good option. And also using sentence case, not all caps. So lowercase letters have more variation, so they're easier to see than all caps. I know people often, when they're writing a heading, will use all caps, but it will be more accessible to use upper and lowercase. So some more tips for text. Considering line spacing, so making sure that between lines it's 1.5 and between paragraphs it's 2. And using heading styles and formats in a logical flow, so that helps to people to orient to the information as well. Also using full titles. So a good example is not just writing ICF, but writing International Classification of Functioning, Health and Disability first, so people know what it means before you then start calling it ICF. And also considering the content, and this is something that we all spend quite a lot of time on these days. And what I really like about the team, we all pull each other up. We're often creating content, and one of us will go, that's at grade 11 reading level. We're getting much better at remembering to do it ourselves, but we're certainly vigilant of at keeping the reading level down. And there's a great free app that we're going to get you to have a bit of a play with later called Hemingway Editor, which is our one of our new best friends to use. It's not perfect, but it helps a lot in getting the reading level down and giving you some really clear guidance of how to do that. In terms of images, using images, it's important to think why you're using an image, and when you use an image, always using alt texts. So adding alt text just describes what the image is. If the image is simply decorative and it's not really adding any information, make sure that it's marked as decorative. Otherwise, someone using a screen reader will just say blank or blank image and they won't know. But if it said decorative, then they know it's not really adding any meaning. And just consider keeping images fairly simple and really thinking about what it is you're wanting to convey with that image, how it's adding to the text that's there. Okay, so I'll hand back to Melanie to talk you through hyperlinks.
The other one was when you use hyperlinks, so a link to another page or another resource, another website. Often those links are described as read this or here or this link. So for screen readers, when they list or they get a summary of links, every link is called the same thing. So you can't you have to go into every link to find out whether that's the link you want or not. So if you use descriptive hyperlinks, you'll know exactly where you're going. So if you've got the same destination, then use the same wording for that link and that destination. If there's a different destination or action, as in you're opening a new tab, you're going to a new website, you're going to a new page in your own website, the screen reader user needs to know that. If the link is going to download something, they need to know that too. And if you tell them before they get there, they don't have to work it out. They don't have to get there and then work it out. And then, yes, as in, if the link is going to result in a download, then also indicate the file type so that you know that you're going into an Excel spreadsheet, you're going into a Word doc, you're going into a PowerPoint presentation, because then that sets them up for, there's going to be this set of controls and this is how I'm going to navigate this thing that I open, rather than having to work all that out when they get there. And also the size of the file, so that they have a choice about whether they want to download a 4 gig file or not. Yeah. There's also tips when we're using videos on our website, or just creating videos for people with deafblindness, that the video is provided with a transcript that exactly matches the spoken content, not just a hash job or a summary. There's an exact match. That the closed captions that are used with the video are not auto-generated, but generated and checked against the spoken content. Auto-generated captions are often not particularly accurate. Thank you for the prompt. That in the video, the speaker's face and mouth are visible for lip readers. Sign language interpretation when the video is live, or translation when the video is not a live video. And that the sign language interpreter wears a plain top to contrast their skin, so providing contrast against the hand shapes and hand signs. That they stand in front of a plain contrasting background that does not produce glare. So for deafblind, we tend to go a dark sort of charcoal coloured background, and a dark top for fair-skinned interpreters, or a lighter top for darker-skinned interpreters. That they are well lit with no shadows, and that they sign within a smaller visual frame, and usually stand a little bit closer to the camera than interpreters typically might, so that you can see them at least from waist up, but not waist down, yeah, usually. Okay, so there are some of our tips, and we're going to give you a little bit of insight into some of the free tools that we used to achieve these points of accessibility. Is that you, Meredith? I'll keep going. Okay. So when checking the contrast of text, so does our text stand out against our background? We've got the Tango Contrast Finder, so these are just some we use. I think there are more. We're just ones that we use and find quite useful, or the Vision Australia Colour Contrast Analyzer. And you'll see there that I've actually broken the rule of a descriptive hyperlink. I've included a descriptive hyperlink, but if you are going to download and take a PDF copy away, you won't know what the URL is. So that's why I've also included a non-descriptive hyperlink. Okay. With checking reading level, the tool that we use is the Hemingway editor. As mentioned, 50% of Australian adults can read to a low secondary level and then we don't have great stats on our deaf literacy levels, but urban myth, if you want to quote, is grade 4 or 5, which is lower, again, than the secondary level, low secondary level literacy. And there's also, so when you're doing emails or creating Word documents, not necessarily creating stuff for websites, so all these tips you can apply in your emails, you can apply in your Word docs, in your day-to-day digital communication. All these tips can be applied. And Microsoft has inbuilt accessibility tools. It's helpful to use the checker, but it's not foolproof. There may still be things that slip through, so it's good to have your knowledge base as well, just not rely on this. And Outlook, I've noticed, is starting to create descriptive hyperlinks automatically. I don't know if any of you have noticed that in your emails. And you can also use, say, Word to create an accessible template that you open. It is going to have your font choice. You can set your font choices, you can set your font size, your line spacing, all automatically to just be preset, and off you go. So you don't have to change these things every time, you've already got them preset. So now, with our last 20 minutes, we are going to encourage you to start having a go at some of these things. So you will find some hard copies of our workbook on your table, and there should be enough for everyone because we've got a head count, so if there's not on your table, there will be on someone else's. If you want a digital copy, you can use this QR code to download the workbook. There's also a QR code on the front stage and then on the back table with our tech people. So you could stand there to get your digital copy. It's a Word doc of... It's a small doc. It's not a large, maybe 10 kilobytes or something. And I'm going to hand over to Meredith, who's going to take us through our first website check.
This doesn't seem to be working. If you want to move it onto that, you can bring it up on your screens or we can bring it up here. But perhaps, we're running a little behind time. So it would be great if someone could let us know what they can see that this website is doing well. Do you want to open Bluebell Bridal? So, yes, if our tech people up the back can open the Bluebell Bridal website. When I sent this to Melanie, she thought I was giving her a hint about something I might be planning, but I was just trying to think of what might be a particularly tizzy website that would have some...
if you just click... No. Wait.
And I would like to tell you
Is that working?
more
No.
about our project. And I
Is that...
can
It's
assure
not...
you it
Is that... That's not loud.
So you don't... Ariane, you don't need to go out of the PowerPoint presentation. You just need to click on the hyperlink that says Bluebell Bridal.
Elena is happy to take
If you go back into slideshow mode,
the floor is yours.
play from this slide, and then click on Bluebell Bridal. Yep, great, thanks.
Thank you, Charlotte. So, yes.
On now,
it was,
it's not-
it was a
loud.
Okay, so already I can see some things.
proposal process took us around 2 years, and we first started with a literature study because we really wanted to know
It's
what do we know about defining
Yep, and you can make a note in your workbooks if you like. So we've got white text on a really pale background.
Okay, so is that an accessibility win or fail? A fail, yep.
topics related to defining deafblindness.
Any other
We have
wins or fails?
and followed by that,
The cart icon is a very pale blue and could easily be missed. And very, like the edges of it are not easily, not sharply delineated.
what is a Delphi study?
Yep. So low contrast, the borders are not definable in the cart icon.
Aggregate the opinions of experts.
I'm not sure if you hover on the pictures if there's any alt text
In our case,
describing.
blindness.
You're correct.
Okay.
So yes,
And
on the blog page there is text that describes some of the dresses, but we got a screen reader to check it, and there is no alt text for the dresses. Yep.
Well picked.
recruited a group of experts. Those were really
There's also white on white, which I really love, so you can not even read it. Like it's white print or font on a white dress. So And a white wall, like it's all, it's very confusing.
Then send it back to us. And we analyzed the questions and found out, for example, there's one question, like almost everyone answered
The
A.
top link, it says link. Yes, it doesn't say what it links to. So not a descriptive hyperlink. Yep, great. Well done. Just in the interest of time, we might move on to the next website. Was there one up here?
The tab order, when you're on mobile, the menu comes after the Bluebell Bridle, but visually it's to the left of it.
So every time we sent out the question.
What a great expert crowd you are. Great. Okay, so we'll...
So there are more and more things, and we, in the workbook towards the end, we've also made some notes about some of those things that we've found throughout as well. A lot of the hyperlinks are very vague. They just say mostly read more.
The next item is a video that we want you to look at, and we don't think we even need to play the video.
Don't click on the click on the video. Thank you.
So what are some of the issues with this video? And this is from our
just starting to play.
Okay, our National Disability Insurance Scheme. Trying to do a good job and adding an Auslan video, which is great. Any issues with this after what Melanie's talked about?
Okay. Can you pop the captions on? So you should move your cursor across and click on CC. Yep.
I think the background is the contrast, and also the text on the left, the color is moving, and then the signing is not to the camera but to the side. So.
Yes, and so this is where you get those individual differences that my understanding is they're thinking for people who are deaf, it's useful to watch conversation, but for deaf-blind, it's harder to track back and forth between. And yes, the contrast behind. Any other issues?
Questionnaires had the same questions.
Yep.
Based on the literature, we decided that we have consensus on a statement when
the captioning is not clear.
the same answer. So with 80%, we said, well, there's consensus.
The captioning could be clearer.
Okay, so the captioning is actually adjustable for this video, so that's something they have done fairly well. But what we can do, we can change the colour, we can change the size. That is adjustable to your own preferences. So, we haven't got it done there, but it is possible to do that.
Because you might think, well, we all have experts on deafblindness, but
Yes, there's no audio with that particular video, which is
that's not
another
audio.
big issue that getting English and Auslan together can be really challenging as well.
25 of the 30 statements. And the other surprise was the response rate. So we had a response rate of 98.
That's a really excellent point to mark that there is no audio with this video. Yes, yeah.
The study is very known for a high
Yes, for if you want
to provide a motivation for every
sign language, yes. Yes, it's an alternative presentation for sign language users, and for others, they can go here for the information. Yep. We might move...
From the website, it does has a transcript, but the hyperlink doesn't tell you what format or how large the file or the transcript is as well. Yep.
I think move on to the picture.
Okay. Can we stop the video and then I'll move to the next slide? Thank you. This is the modifying reading level, our convention on the rights.
Okay, so I thought I'd be funny and pick Article 2 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disability, which is on accessibility, which is at university level. And so you've got that in your reading notes there, and we really hoped you'd have a quick go at even just the first couple of lines, seeing if you can get it down. And we're going to ask our tech support to open up Hemingway Editor.
Not that one. Sorry, not that one. We got out of that one.
So the Hemingway Editor app that we all sort of use as our go-to to check. And if somebody wants to have a go at
I'm just going to go back a few slides
Typing
to
the
Hemingway.
a revised version of the first few lines and see what grade level you can get it down to.
Where's our Hemingway? Okay, sorry.
There's a couple of tips that to consider. So not using passive voice. When things are listed, making them into bullet points rather than all listed in one long sentence, and also shortening sentences wherever possible are some things to keep in mind to get the reading level down. Also, complicated words, thinking of other ways of saying more abstract and complex
there it
language.
is. The Hemingway editor text, yep.
So this is what Hemingway editor looks like, and we thought it's a good opportunity because we need to ask our tech support up the back. So this is what it looks like when you open it up, and so you just cut all of that text out and type in the new text. Yep. So we'll cut all of that out. Is anyone game to have a go at typing in a revised wording for the start of Article 2? Any brave soul? Have a think.
So we had some fresh blood again. It's good for the discussions. So in that first meeting, we reached agreement on the 5 statements that we didn't have agreement on, which we needed for writing down the functional definition. And then in the second meeting, we wrote a draft version of the functional definition. So we did that together. And every time we made adjustments to the definition, we had to reach agreement with the...
Even states parties. What's another way you could say states parties? Country, yeah, is going to be a simplified way of getting that information across.
An extra small group of people, again, care professionals, again, experts by experience. And after that, it was checked again by all the researchers to make sure that it was matching the
states parties is, or to use the word country instead of states parties, which I think is all throughout the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities.
So we're really happy with that. You can find the functional definition on the flyers that we sent you. You can use the QR code. We translated.
That's perfect. Yes. So for anybody that couldn't hear, there's long lists within text, and you can just bullet point it, which immediately brings the reading level down and makes it a lot easier to read. That you've got these points rather than this whole swarm of text that you're having to try to navigate. Would you like to have a go typing in a modified version? No?
Terminology that we use in the definition that is needed to understand.
Okay, that's okay.
And our next step is to implement this so that people
We're also fast running out of time.
Working at the care organizations, at the desk office for entering the care, entering education, can use this definition.
I don't think it's an easy thing, and I think Meredith's being a bit mean putting you on the spot, but it's good to have a go because we all went through this, and I know the process is incredibly frustrating for me. Like, I spent years at university where complex writing was the end goal and what you were marked on, and then I came out of university to have to relearn how to communicate in a day-to-day level. So it is a skill, and it's a skill I'm still developing, and at times causes me frustration, but the more you do it, the easier it gets, and you realise how helpful it is for so many people. Yeah.
And just this is relevant for writing emails as well as web content. So any writing that you're doing, any communications that you're doing, it's a really good rule of thumb to how simple can we get this, and use Hemingway Editor to check.
Yeah.
So Hemingway tells you what the reading level is. That's something useful because half the time you've got no idea what reading level it is. So I wonder
if I'm thinking maybe if you start typing in this sentence, buildings.
Hearing and vision impairment experiences problems with
So as she's typing, it's starting to assess the reading level on the side there. So readability grade 6, comma, roads,
functioning and or
comma, transportation,
stasis. As a result,
and other
hearing
indoor.
and vision impairment hinders the performance of daily activities and participation in society.
And outdoor
The
facilities.
problem someone experiences depends on an interaction between the personal characteristics, environmental factors, characteristics
Roads.
of combined auditory and visual functions,
Transportation.
positional problems.
So you posted the actual Article 2 in there? Yes, and it comes out as postgraduate, that's right.
Yes.
So what we do is we type out our content, we paste it into Hemingway Editor. It tells us what grade level it is. But the useful thing is it will highlight anything that's passive, anything that's way too complex, and it will highlight in different colours and tell you the reason there's a problem with it, so you know what you need to do to fix it and get it down. And you can chip away with it in Hemingway Editor and play around until it starts to come down. So that's why it's a useful app. It happens in front of your eyes and you can work out what's working. But as you use Hemingway Editor, you get better at knowing how to do all that stuff from the start. I heard a really great term. I was going to wrap up with this, but just this year actually, and I heard someone yesterday said, we like to produce, he was asking about what I was going to be covering in this session, and he said, we have a term, born accessible. Everything that we release is accessible, it's born accessible. But I heard this term at a conference earlier that's conceived accessible. And so start with the person with deafblindness, get them producing it so that it's conceived accessible rather than putting something into Hemingway Editor and having to fix it, like conceive of it is accessible. And I think, involving people with deafblindness wherever possible. So we run all of our stuff past our reference group that has 4 people with deafblindness and 2 parents of people with deafblindness on it. I'm just, in the interest of time, we might jump
We've still got
to...
3 minutes. We can do this. I want to finish on something easy.
There's 2 more.
If we can exit,
There's another
close that and go back to the presentation.
Can we jump to the picture?
Yes, so tips or images, again, I think we've been through that. So we've got an image there that's also in your booklet, and how would you start to describe it?
We did pick a particularly busy image, but we're really keen to hear if someone thinks they can, why you think we've picked this image, what the salient feature is, what the key thing going on in that image is that we want to share, and how you would describe it as simply and in as few words as possible. And the reason you want few words is because people using a screen reader don't want to get stuck with this huge long description of an image. They kind of just want to get to the point.
Yeah. So the way that you might describe it, if that was on a public website, might be different to how you would describe the image if it was in a club newsletter, for example. So in a club newsletter, half the people might know the people in the image, so they might want to know that Mary, John, Annabelle and Priscilla
are sitting around a table in the club
Able
courtyard.
Australia trying out the vision goggles. Yep.
That's smart.
But in a public website, it might be 4 people around a table. One of them is wearing vision goggles, for example. Yep.
But then we had a
Yeah.
meeting and we discussed it, and everybody was like, no, I don't like this, and I don't like that. So
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So if it's broadly to the public, you're going to just say 4 people around a table, 1 wearing smart glasses. If it's for your club newsletter, you'll name them and say where they are, if it's a place they know. Exactly right. It's contextual.
So I saw this animation, and there were so many overlapping themes and other parts of the definition with our definition. But I think it was a very good process for us to
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, you're right. Yes. So it's what's the intent? Why are you? What's the message you're wanting to give from this?
Yep.
So
I've got a comment. Second table back in the centre, and to your right. Yep.
Hannah speaking. I'm just wondering. I'm new to the image description. I get a little bit scared that I'm going to get it wrong. So often, I don't know if it's just me, but it can be a bit daunting as to what to put in. So I understand what we've just said about the 4 people around the table. Do you then go into what's the rest of the image as well, so that the person knows?
Do you want me to answer?
Meredith, we still grapple with this, Hannah, and there's no hard and fast standard rules. So I think you get better at it. And this is a really busy image. You'd probably aim for a less busy image, you want minimal to describe. I think we're right on time. My very final passing comment is that you can do everything right, get your website as accessible, meet all the standards, and it still won't be accessible to some people. So making sure you have that one-on-one support to sit with people, go through the information with them so that they know where they can go back to it. But keep working with the individuals that you are in your organisation to really get it to be meaningful, and that they can go to a website expecting that they will understand it. I think a lot of people just don't even try. They expect to not understand it, which is why we want to raise expectations that you will go there and be able to access it. So thank you for your time, and we're around if you've got questions later. Thanks, Marta.